Welcome back to another Small Bore and More with Simon and James. If you've been following the channel, you know today is Dyno Day.
And where else better to take the 2022 Monkey than the UK's headquarters for DynoJet resident tuners at the Isle of Man TT.
And you'll notice we've refitted the stock exhaust and airbox, and we're going to be running the bike on the dyno like that, and then running it again after installing the over racing RSR exhaust, and then again after installing the DNA Stage 3 intake kit.
We'll have all the analysis and details of the runs, and you'll be able to answer questions. Does the bike need a remap with the exhaust and filter?
So if you want to know the answer to that, keep watching. Right now, let's get the bike in the back of the van and get on the 2-hour trip down to DynoJet. It's going to be a good day.
That's gone nowhere.
Let's hit the road. So, before we set off, what are your predictions? The fact that Honda say 9.5 horsepower, which is at the crank. So the wheel, that's going to be a bit less than,
I'd say early 8.
so 8
Between 8 and 8.5
at the wheel.
at the wheel.
Okay. What about everything on, exhaust, DNA, the lot, mapped in? What do you think? What's your predictions?
Be nice double figures. Very early 10s. I can't see it being any more.
I'd love to get double figures. If we can get double figures, it's been a good day. Right, come on, let's get on the way. How do?
You alright?
Yeah, I'm James, Small Bore and More.
I'm Frank, you alright?
Yeah, I'm good. We've got the Honda Monkey in the back of the van.
Yeah, brilliant. If you want to drive around the back, you'll see double doors where the dyno is and we'll get cracking.
Excellent. See you around there.
Okay, cheers. Okay, so one of the first things we need to do when we actually get a bike on the dyno is make sure that we're getting a super accurate air fuel reading. So when we're doing any tuning work, if the air fuel reading isn't accurate, we've got basically inaccurate data to base our changes from. So the issue you may come across with this sort of bike is that the standard exhaust is actually baffled down here. So to put a probe down the end of the exhaust, it wouldn't go far enough to get an accurate reading, especially at small throttle openings where the actual gas speed is very low. So the only option that we've really got, we've picked a suitable spot behind this cover to actually drill and riv nut and use this DynoJet product, the Stealth Extraction Kit, which we attach a lambda sensor to, so that gets us a really accurate, nice air fuel reading.
I see, right. But no one else has to drill the exhaust, do they? This is just so we can get the data to build them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just going to connect the PowerVision 3 up through the diagnostic port. Simple as that. So Frank, it's as simple as switch the bike on, select the correct map on the PowerVision 3, and then just send it to the ECU.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a whole 8.3?
Yeah, 8.3. So there isn't actually anywhere in stock trim where this bike runs to its optimum.
Right.
So it's either lean or it's rich. We've run the bike at 10% throttle increments all the way from 10 up to 100. And we can see on the graph here, this is air fuel, all the data's against engine RPM. So 10 to 90% throttle was all running at around 14.7 to 1, which is a lot leaner than the optimum. And then as soon as we go from 90 to wide open throttle, the bike actually starts running rich at 12 to 1 air fuel. So there isn't a single point where this bike actually runs to its optimum in stock trim. Okay, so we've gone through the PowerVision tuning process on the standard setup, everything completely stock. We'd found that for the majority of the throttle position, from closed throttle to 90%, the bike was very lean. Wide open throttle, the bike was very rich. We've been able to optimize the fueling. We've also optimized the ignition timing, which has found us a little bit more performance. And what we found is that right through the rev range at every throttle position, the bike's a lot smoother, more performance, will be a nicer bike to ride and be more powerful. So, for example, this is a couple of runs, before and after runs at 40% throttle. So the red being before, the run was quite shaky, the blue a lot smoother and with a performance hike there. Again, this is the same story, 60%. We can see the shaky graph here. This is the air fuel where it was running very lean. So now we're a lot smoother with better performance. At wide open throttle, which will be the best run I had was. So the ultimate performance, we've gone from the red to the blue. So without any actual physical modifications, just optimizing the mapping in the ECU, we've gained nearly half a horsepower, which doesn't sound a lot, but when you've only got 8, it is a lot, a massive percentage. So yeah, you'll be able to feel that a lot on the road.
Brilliant, good stuff. Can't wait to see what it does with the exhaust on.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Filter. Okay, so what we've found just by putting these straight through free-flowing exhaust on, firstly from sort of an engine safety point of view, there's actually nothing to worry about. As we explained before, with the ECU standard, the bike self-learns from the stock narrowband lambda sensor all the way up to 90% throttle to keep the fuel in at 14.7 to 1. So absolutely no exception here. Every throttle opening, the bike runs at 14.7 to 1, which is exactly how the stock bike runs. What we have found, and what is actually works in the favour of putting a free-flowing exhaust on, is that this stock bike ran too rich at wide open. So now the engine actually needs that extra fuel. So the fueling, especially at high RPM, isn't too far away with this exhaust on. So we've immediately got sort of a horsepower gain, which is a lot better. But you'll notice, again, the power curves are very shaky. We can sort this fueling out, optimise the ignition timing. So even though that's a step forward, we can make it even better with ECU tuning. And optimised the bike for the new exhaust. We can see on the screen here the air-fuel ratio is now constantly running at around 13.2. The power curves are a lot smoother, a lot nicer, and we've gained more power on top. So if I go to wide open throttle, we've gone from 9.1 to 9.4. So quite a nice improvement. And then again, if we look at the part throttle runs, for example, 50% throttle, we're a lot smoother, a lot nicer power delivery. That applies right throughout every throttle position throughout the rev range. So again, all good improvements, making it a lot better performance, a lot nicer bike to ride. Okay, so what we've found with the bike, the ECU and stock trim with the straight through exhaust on and the DNA stage 3 intake, we've instantly got a performance gain. But what we can see, the shape of the curve and the smoothness is probably the worst it's been. Now for me, that probably means, I don't know until we've mapped it, but there'll be more potential for improvements with mapping it with these mods that we've got on. I'd like to see this a lot smoother at wide open. Only sort of from 7,000 RPM onwards at wide open throttle, the bike does actually run a bit lean. So if you were to sort of hold it at max revs at wide open throttle for a prolonged time, it could run into issues. Otherwise, everywhere under 7 and under wide open throttle, from an engine point of view, is safe to run even with those mods on. but you're definitely not getting the smoothest, best performance out of it without tuning the ECU. Rid of that.
Yeah, see that a mile off then. So.
Yeah.
So, max power 10.18, double figures.
So, as I mentioned before, the performance had picked up just adding the intake with the stock ECU. However, the shape of the curve wasn't very nice, which kind of led me to believe that it would be more sensitive now to remapping, and that's been absolutely the case. So, for example, this is a before and after run at 70% throttle. So the red is before, once again, very shaky, not nice curve. Blue is after, more predictable, more progressive. And then at wide open throttle, we saw massive gains. So we went from 9.5 to 10. So we broke the 10 barrier. However, I wasn't very happy with this dip after 7. So did a bit more work on that and managed to smooth that out and pick a little bit more performance up. So we ended up with a nicer curve, 10.18 horsepower.
So that's a tune and complete. In summary, we carried out 3 different mapping sessions. The first was the stock bike, running the stock ECU, which put out about 8.3 brake horsepower at the rear wheel. And remembering that the 9.5 claimed brake horsepower is at the crank, so we'd expect it to be a bit lower when it's measured at the wheel. Using the PV3 and dialing it in, we gained about 5% of an increase from 8.3 to 8.7, which is pretty decent and shows you can get gains from just an ECU modification. We then returned the mapping back to stock and fitted the over racing full system to simulate what it would be like just buying an exhaust and fitting it without touching the ECU, and this gave us an instant increase of nearly 9% to 9.1 brake horsepower. Improving that though, by flashing it with the PowerVision 3, we got an increase of up to 12%, taking the bike to 9.44 horsepower. But the most significant thing here is the smoothing of the power delivery, which will make it a much nicer bike to ride on the road. And finally, we fitted the DNA Stage 3 intake kit, and we found that without mapping, although we got an increase of up to 9.58 brake horsepower, we ended up with a much more ragged power curve and some unwanted dips. So back to the dyno, Frank worked his magic, altering the parameters of fueling and ignition timing and smoothed that out. Our final BHP was 10.18, a massive 18% increase over the stock bike. However, the most significant element of the end result being the power and torque curves. Whereas the stock bike loses power significantly after 7,000 RPM, the bike now holds its peak power all the way to the red line at 8,500. Now with the PowerVision system, you don't have to bring your bike to the dyno. You simply buy the kit, tell DynoJet what modifications you have, and the file's emailed over to you, and in seconds you can flash the ECU and have the bike performing the best it can. You can choose to mount the kit on the bike and benefit from some additional data displayed over the stock dash, or you can unplug it and remove after the flash is complete it's a brilliant product. Frank, it's been a brilliant day here at DynoJet UK. Thanks so much for having us. And if you want to get your hands on a PowerVision 3 and any of the maps that we've created today, then I'll put a link in the comments below to DynoJet UK's contact details. I think that's all left to say is that's all from Small Bore and More today. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care.